This is the very appropriately named, the one about the native HTML5 apps on Windows 8. If you're a web developer, you are in the right room. And if you're looking to build Windows 8 apps, this is the session for you. My name is Mukul Seth. I'm an interactive developer with DigiFlare Inc. And without much further ado, I'll get started. My Twitter handle and DigiFlare's handle is down there if you want to check us out. And also, this is obviously a very social event, so do follow or like the page on Facebook for Pure Imagination, and there's a Twitter handle for that as well. And the hashtag we'll be using all day, and also tomorrow if you're attending the hackathon tonight, and tomorrow would be Win8PI. And the session is Dev2, so you can hashtag it with these two tags. I'm actually going to go ahead and do that right now, just to get started. Oops, my window's actually closed, so I'm actually not going to do that then. I had the message composed earlier. That's fine. Okay. So a little bit about the company that I work for. We're a platform agnostic company. We do everything from the web to native for iOS, Android, obviously Windows Phone, and BlackBerry as well. We also do Xbox and smart TV apps, so you can see everything in the living room is sort of covered there. We've done some great projects in the past, and we were actually one of the key partners for Windows 8 for launch. We delivered 10 apps on that platform. We're very proud of them, and you should go check them out or reach out to me after the session, and I can get you more information about that. Like I said, the DigiFlare Twitter handle is just @DigiFlare. So the agenda for this session is we're going to talk a little bit about the current landscape of HTML5 and how that translates over to you building Windows 8 native apps, what's supported, what's not supported, what's additional to help you get your job done. That's sort of covered in the tools and Win.js sections. So this is why we're all here, building amazing apps in Metro style or modern style for Windows 8 platform. A lot of the skill sets you have for developing for the web and IE as well, you can translate that over to Windows 8. And this is sort of an introductory session on how you can go about doing that. This is the overall stack options or technology options you have for developing Windows 8 apps as well as desktop apps. Specifically, we'll be focusing on the HTML5, CSS, JavaScript engine area, as well as a little bit of the IE browser. But you'll notice here that all three of these stacks, they access the same WinRT APIs. So you have a lot of different plugin points from JavaScript as well as from XAML, C#, C++, or VB apps. Whatever you have access to from XAML, you have access to from HTML and CSS as well. It's not a second-class citizen. You have full access to those WinRT APIs. So a little bit about HTML5 and IE9 and IE10. You can see there's a great level of support for the different different HTML5 features and CSS features as well. This is sort of what's available in the hardware accelerated web platform of Windows 8. You can see there's a great amount of support for this stuff, and we'll see some demos that show a lot of these things off. And it's very performant, very optimized for both IE and Windows 8 HTML5 apps. Some key concepts that are incorporated into Windows 8 to allow you to build great experiences are obviously transforms, 2D and 3D, motion, animations, and transitions. And you'll notice this a lot in the templates that you get out of the box with Visual Studio as well as grid and flexbox layout properties. Obviously, graphics, content flow, which is needed for building great reading experiences on Windows 8, such as news apps, RSS reader apps, that kind of stuff. To some degree, most apps incorporate some sort of reading aspects as well, so it's a great thing to have. And to be hardware accelerated to make really beautiful. You don't see that on the screen, but there's a little note at the bottom to make beautiful and fast experiences for Windows 8. These are a lot of the HTML5 APIs that are supported. Cool stuff like WebSockets, web workers, We even have the audio and video tags for multimedia requirements. You can also, Windows 8 also builds on top of these. So you can do, for example, DRM with the video element in Windows 8, which is not available in the browser. It's not part of standard spec, but Windows 8 enables stuff like that. File access APIs, blobs. You can even plug into your local drives, or even SkyDrive with some cool APIs that are available. So really, it's everything you know on the web, brought onto the Windows 8 platform and added to really plug into the OS and make some cool experiences possible. I'll just do a couple of HTML5 CSS3 demos in IE, just to show off what's sort of possible with this platform. So this is a 3D particle acceleration demo. You can see I can spin this sphere, I can blow it up. Very cool stuff. The frame rate right now is a little bit down because we're also recording this, but it runs very smoothly at 60 frames per second on my machine, even on the Surface. So it's a great thing to check out. And I believe the source is available somewhere. I don't have the link on me right now, but there's also other demos like gravitational pull, touch effects. You have particle effects going on there as well. Very cool stuff. And if you want to see how these things are enabled, or the different CSS3 properties that you can play with, there's this site as well. And you can go ahead and open up one of these demos, modify the parameters, see how they affect the overall result. And you can see the little source updating there as well, so you know what you need to do in your app to make that possible. And obviously what we're all working towards in the end is something very cool like Atari Arcade, which I'm a big fan of. It's made possible by the use of a framework called Create.js. They have a session at this event as well, and I believe Grant Skinner will be presenting Create.js later on. Definitely check out that session. They have some very cool old school games. Actually, not to play that one, but let me go to Lunar Lander. Some very cool HTML5 games. This is all rendering on the canvas element. Very interactive. Obviously, this is within the browser, but you can also take this and build a Windows 8 app out of it. And I'll have a little demo of that later on. I'm pretty terrible at this, and it's very slow. So I'm so those are some awesome HTML5 CSS running in the web. Now we'll talk about how you can bring stuff like that over to native Windows 8 app. Some of the tools you'll be using are Visual Studio 2012 and Blend 5. I can get started on how you can build an app using those tools very quickly. So I'll just open up Visual Studio here. File. Oops. New project. I'll make sure to select the JavaScript section of this panel and Windows Store. I'll actually create a grid application. So it's going to give me a few views out of the box, and I can play around with them and show how you can use Blend to style these things as well. There we go. So what you get in this, with using this template is default.html. There's a default.javascript file as well, which essentially is setting up the app workflow as well as session history and that kind of stuff. So you don't have to muck about with that stuff if you just want something simple with a great experience out of the box. Let me just open one of the pages. So you have pages as well which have their own HTML files, CSS, and JavaScript code behind, so to speak. I'll just quickly run this app to see what the experience is like out of the box. So what you see is, I'm not actually on a touch screen right now, but this app is fully enabled for 3 modalities. You have touch, mouse, and keyboard. So I can basically use this app with any of those forms of input. This is the main screen I have, where I have a panorama essentially of various groups of items. I can click on the group header to see all the items in that and view a little bit more details about it. you can see I get the nav right out of the box as well. I can click on an item to view the item detail page. And also I have Snap, so I can just push that app over to the side. I get a great list view for the Snap state, and I can still navigate through the app. Same 3 views. Now I can go back to full view, and you can see it kept track of which page I was on, rendered the appropriate content. The navigation is still the same. So this app is currently called App 11. I'm not a big fan of that. Let me just see how we can go edit that. So I'm going to stop the debugger for a second. I'll right-click on this app. I'll say Open in Blend. So Blend is really the tool you want to use for adding CSS property or CSS styles and updating bits and pieces of markups here and there. But really, the logic you want to add in Visual Studio. And Blend is great as well because you get a live view of the app. So this is actually running my app, and I can get a live view of it here as well. I believe there's an interactive mode that I can turn on and use the app right in Blend. So great tool for that.
Sorry,
yep.
Did you right-click to get to Blend from Visual Studio?
Oh, in Visual Studio, just right-click the project, and there's an Open in Blend option. And so I'll go back to my home screen. You can see it's the same project structure. All the files that were available to me in Visual Studio are also here in the Project Explorer. I can open my grouped items page, which was my home page. I'll just click on, I can't click on it for some reason, but I know where it is. Oops. Actually, maybe I don't know where it is. Oh. Nope. Oh, there we go, page title. So I can just go ahead and tap so I just updated my title right in the HTML editor. And I can go ahead and run that app through Blend as well by just hitting F5. So this is basically the same app. It's being shared between the designer tool and the development tool. And I can still use the app completely as it was before. Now I want to go ahead and apply some CSS style to this. So I'll click on this little label. So this is actually based on a template that's being rendered multiple times for each of the items you see on the screen. But I can go ahead and modify it in one place and have it update for the template. So I'll go ahead and change the color of that text. And I also want to increase the font size, but you'll see here that the font size is disabled because that rule is being applied from the dark theme CSS for this app type that you get out of the box. But I want to go ahead and overwrite that. So what I can do is right-click it. I can say create rule from element class. This is one of the classes that is assigned to this particular H4. And by doing this, what I do is I essentially create a new CSS rule that will get applied to every item that's rendered based on that template as well. So if I scroll down here to text, now I can have font size. I'll assign 15 points to it. You see it updates. I can increase that a bit. And you'll also see in this applied styles rule panel here that it created a new rule based on the item title class. I can double click that to go to where that is in the source, and you can see that at the bottom right there. And it created it for that page. It's intelligent enough to know that. I'll go ahead and save that, close this project in Blend. Now this should push me back to Visual Studio. Now I can run this project. And you see the styles transferred over seamlessly. I didn't have to do anything special. Very powerful. Obviously, this is a very rudimentary example, but you can do some really cool stuff with a designer-developer workflow using these two tools. Oh, okay. Great. Okay. Continue with the presentation. So WinJS, how many of you are familiar with the JavaScript libraries out there like jQuery and all that other jazz? Quite a few. So WinJS is essentially like one of those libraries, but specifically made for Windows 8 native apps. So you get a lot of cool stuff like XHR wrappers. You can make XHR calls, have a callback, all async, and very, very nice and clean code. You also have out-of-the-box controls, something like jQuery UI, I guess, that are designed for the Windows 8 application personality, like grid views, like you saw earlier, list views, buttons, combo boxes, radio buttons, all that great stuff. And it's got a whole bunch of other utilities stuff, things out of the box, for example, to do view binding to data. So you can have something like an MVVM experience. If you're not familiar with that, it's something like Knockout, I believe, does that for the web platforms. Backbone is another great example. So you get that all out of the box with WinJS. And it's really got two pillars. So make your apps look and feel great, and build your apps fast and with high quality. So you get Metro design language out of the box. You get that personality for your apps. Controls for common user experiences. Designed for touch as well as mouse and keyboard. I demoed that a little bit earlier. Scales across different form factors, and you get Snap View as well, which is great. Build your apps fast and with high quality. So a lot of the syntax and stuff you'll see it's obviously all JavaScript. What you're familiar with on web technologies, you can apply that here. Modern patterns for responsive and reliable apps. Use interactive design tools like Blend to get your apps out the door quicker and make them look great, obviously, as well. So these are all the different components of what WinJS is made up of. Helpers for namespaces. Obviously, if you do a lot of web development, you know that the global scope is, you don't want to define a lot of stuff in the global scope. It can collide with other libraries that you're using, variable names and that kind of stuff. So you get a library for defining your own namespaces and classes and that kind of stuff. Promises is the idea of basically making asynchronous calls very easy to use. So XHR is essentially a promise object, or you can make a web request and get a promise object back. In that, you can pass your callback. So what code will run when the XHR, if you don't know what XHR is, it's XML HTTP request. So when that call returns, what code do you want to call and basically manipulate that data that you got back and apply it to your views. App model for stuff like listening for the different app workflow events like activated, suspending. So you can save your state at that time, and then when the user comes back or the app is restored from a suspended state, you can restore the user session. Page and user controls, navigation obviously you get as well. Data binding I mentioned, controls, animations, Visual Studio templates, and as well list item templates, grid item templates, all that kind of stuff, and some default CSS styles to make your app look like they belong in the Metro Windows 8 world. So promises, like I mentioned earlier, is a promise for a later value. You can hook up to the completion event with the then method, which is essentially your callback, and then returns that promise. And what you can do with this is also chain your promises. So you can have asynchronous operations being fired serially. So I can keep doing then this, and that works really well as well. Here's a little example of a code snippet. It's cutting off at the bottom, but really there's just a brace bracket ending on that line. So you can see here, the namespace WinJS basically facilitates the use of my use of XHR. I can give it a URL that I want to hit. This happens to be a JSON web service request, and when that returns, I can do something with the response. Essentially, what this is doing is just parsing that JSON and getting a native JSON object back. And I can also listen for exceptions and handle them appropriately. So if you've used jQuery's AJAX or get JSON methods, this is very similar. Essentially the same idea, slightly different syntax, but if you know that, you wouldn't have any trouble getting up and running with this. And if you choose, you can still use jQuery as well, but there's one caveat. I believe it's later on in the presentation that I'll mention. So one of the apps that has been built that I'd like to demo is the Contoso Cookbook. It's a demo app. You can actually download it as well. I don't have the URL on me right now, but you can reach me after the session. I can get that to you. You have full access to the source. You can see how it's built, all the inner workings of it, and maybe get inspired from it and learn a couple things. I'll just go ahead and get that started. So you can see this is very similar to the grid example that I showed earlier. Obviously, it's got live data. It's got some really cool CSS styles applied to it. I can click in and get the recipe details. There's even an app bar, which you don't see, but that allows me to pin this particular recipe to my start screen. So I'll go ahead and do that. Now you see there's a tile for that particular recipe. I can click on that to deep link into that section of the app. And you also have the group details page, essentially the same template, just with, actually that's not live data, but you get the idea. And this one also has something called semantic zoom. So I can, this is essentially control mouse wheel to zoom out. And this allows me to jump to a section that would have been maybe further down in the panorama. It gives me a convenient way to jump to it and get some additional details as well on it, like how many recipes are there total in that particular group. And there's a little preview of all the items in that list as well, which is very cool. Obviously, I mentioned you do get snap view as well. So, yep, very, very easy to do. If you know JavaScript, CSS, HTML, you can get started very quickly to build something like that. If you do prefer your own libraries like jQuery, Knockout, you can mix and match with Win.js and build some cool apps. You just have to understand the web context and sandboxing model. Obviously, Win.js also gives you additional plugs into the WinRT APIs, which you have to be aware of. And as long as you play well with Win.js, your apps can use other libraries and frameworks as well. So this is the little caveat about using XHR in jQuery. There are cross-domain issues trying to access web content, and jQuery XHR has that check in versions 1.6 and up. So you have to be aware of what your local context is, and so cross-domain checks might fail just for XHR. That's why Win.js XHR might be a good replacement for anywhere in your code where you're making a jQuery XML HTTP request. And like I showed you earlier, it's very similar syntax, so it shouldn't be a big deal to go and add a little check to see if it's running on Windows 8. If so, you can use Win.js XHR. Otherwise, you can keep using jQuery's GET request or AJAX, whatever you want to use. Host enforcement. So I'm not actually too familiar with this. I haven't used this personally yet, but it's there if you want to know more about it. So just to recap a little bit, if you know web technologies, you are ready to build amazing Windows Store apps. Again, you're using HTML, CSS, JavaScript, just like you're used to. So the ramp-up time is very minimal, and it obviously plugs you into a lot of really cool stuff as well. So you can extend the experiences into Windows 8 and add stuff like Snap View, add stuff like live tiles or pinning to the home screen. to really plug into the ecosystem and be in front of your consumers as much as possible. That actually shouldn't have ended so quickly. Let me see what's going on there. So I actually have another little demo. I've been building a game over the past few days, and it's in Create.js as well. I'd like to bring that over to a Windows 8 app. So I'll go ahead and create a new project. This time I'll actually just create a blank app so I don't get any of that template stuff created for me. Call it Rocket Hero. And just to make sure you guys see this, I'm going to go ahead and delete the entire JavaScript folder, the HTML file, and CSS. So there's nothing there. I've completely blown it away. The only item that's left is reference to the Win.js libraries and my app package manifest, as well as the images that I'll use to submit to the store. And now what I'll do is open up the game that I've been working on. And this is obviously in HTML. There we go. Very simple example of a vertical scroller where the purpose is just to grab as many of these gems as possible with your rocket ship. This responds to my keyboard as well as touch if you have that enabled on your device using the L and R buttons. That's all you really have to do. And what I'm going to do is the frame rate, again, you can see is kind of not optimal because this session is also being recorded, so it's not to do with that. Otherwise, it runs very smooth 60 frames per second. I've run this on the Microsoft servers as well. Very great performance. So I'll close that, and basically I'll take all this entire source package, and I will go into Visual Studio and just plop that right in there. And now I'll just run the app. Hopefully there's no issues there. So you can see this is now running as a Windows 8 native app. Essentially the same functionality, same fidelity, and if you were able to see the performance, it is, again, 60 frames per second. I can also go ahead and snap that, and you'll see the canvas resizes. That's because I have a little bit of CSS code on my main page to ensure that the canvas is always picking up the full window. And yeah. It's very easy to get started. I encourage you to go check out the Create.js session later on as well. For a more deep dive into building HTML5 native apps for Windows 8, there's a session happening here right afterwards that Paul LeBurge is going to be doing with a lot of great stuff. Yeah, I don't think there's actually much more content there. He's actually going to be walking through the Contoso Cookbook app, the source, so you'll get a really good understanding of how that works. And how to implement the various features like Snap View and hooking up to data, as well as creating your app bar and that kind of stuff. So should be very good. With that, are there actually, you know what? There's a little bit more. Sorry about that. So there's some really cool resources on dev.windows.com. There's also a lot of great videos from Build 2012 and Build 2011 on Channel 9 and MSDN. Beauty of the web to check out some really good, some really awesome examples of IE, IE9, IE10, Windows HTML5 examples, and what's really possible pushing the bounds with HTML5, CSS3, and Canvas and JavaScript. There's a really great program happening right now as well called the Developer Movement, where you essentially get points for doing unlocking various achievements like building a Windows 8 app, submitting that to the store. You get points for that, and then you can redeem those for some awesome prizes. And there's a hackathon happening at this event as well later on today, and it will run through tomorrow, where you can build some cool stuff and have on-site resources to help you out if you run into any issues in building apps for the Microsoft platform. Definitely encourage you to do that. I'll be there as well, building some cool stuff. After this session, you can submit your sessions evaluations. Microsoft is using something called Poll Everywhere to essentially enable this, and I have to mention that they don't collect any information just as a privacy policy. I have to let you guys know. But if you want to read this in detail, it is in the slide. You can read that right now or afterwards, after the session. And that's where you would go to fill out the session eval. We actually have a lot of time left, so I can take questions if you have them now. Yep. Really, there's not a lot of, there aren't any performance issues. There's some reasons to use them would be if your development team is more familiar with XAML and C#, you're more likely better off using that over JavaScript. But it's really comes down to what skill set you have, and the end user can't tell the difference essentially between a JavaScript HTML app versus a XAML app. So you wouldn't notice any performance issues. I'm trying to think of any specific outside cases that are not possible with one or the other. I can't think of any right now. Like I mentioned, the HTML5 video element, Windows or Microsoft has gone and added additional support through the media framework libraries to enable stuff like DRM and that stuff. I'm not sure if there's anything else that is different that you can't do in HTML5 JavaScript.
How about
Anything?
HTTP requests, for example?
Sorry?
How about HTTP requests, for example? Like, I'm guessing be done in HTML, obviously. However, could that also be done in C# and C++?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
There are WinRT libraries for that? Or?
For a XAML app, it's on the top of my head. Can't remember right now. Let me actually open up a little example where I can show you how to make HTTP requests. So this is one of the apps that I'm working on right now. In my data service layer, actually I'll do that up. So this uses an HTTP client. You create a new instance of it, and you can essentially create an HTTP request message object, and you can fire that call with HTTP client.sendAsync and pass it that request object. And the syntax is obviously different, but the idea is essentially pretty much the same. And you can listen for that callback, the data coming back, and parse that as you see fit. This one's deserializing that as XML, and then there's a JSON one here as well. So essentially, both are possible with HTTP requests are possible with both XAML, C# as well as JavaScript, and you can also do this in C++ if you so choose.
And this is just a standard library
Yep, standard classes that you can use. HTTP request message objects is all part of the XAML C# subset of .NET, which is available in Windows 8 stack. Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
So if somebody's written a library in C#, you only use it for JS app? Is there a way to do that?
There is. You can actually have cross interop. You can compile it into a WinRT component, You can also do C++, or the other way around. You can compile your JavaScript as a WinRT component and use it in a XAML C# app or whatever as well. So, for example, yeah, if you want to do some really complex computations and stuff, you might be better off doing them in C++ because it's closer to the chip, much more performance-oriented stuff. You can do that and make those calls from your JavaScript app, get a result back from that library, and then use that in your HTML JavaScript app as well. Yep. Mm-hmm. Haven't yet, actually. Any DRM stuff that we've done has been on the C# XAML stack so far, using PlayReady. Yeah. Any other questions? If you don't have anything right now, but would like to reach me afterwards, I'll have some cards up here, or you can message me on Twitter. It's m_seth. Yeah, I'll be around if you have questions you want to come up and ask me as well. So thanks everyone for coming, and yeah, I hope you got something out of that.